shell things? Maybe I should just.
I don't have any. I have Boston crackers. Oh, did you finish them?
I ate those one. Those taco shells, do they need to be cooked?
Just grab one. Have a bite of them.
All right.
Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back. Miraculously enough, I'm still sick. I thought after the last segment maybe it would go away just from all the well wishes, but still have a cold. I am joined by Dr. Amber Brandis. We've really taken this show up a notch by having an actual doctor on the show. Sadly, she's not an internist and can't help me feel better. But what you don't hear in sickness, you also can't see in sickness, like in my head. I'm like a little bit of a lunatic and I need therapy anywhere I can get it. And since the show has me on the air for 27 hours a day, we just thought we would bring therapy to us as opposed to going out and getting therapy. Can I call you Amber?
Of course.
Amber was like you were a viewer,
yes.
And then we reached out to you and we were like, come be on the show and be our concierge therapist. So what, like a therapist, I mean, we think of therapy as like laying on the couch
This is
and
mold, right?
divulging.
The blue stuff on here is mold.
Blue stuff on there would be.
I don't know. It was on there when we first got it.
Oh, that's good to know.
And it said the expiration was like in a month, so I was like,
Then you're good to go. You may be doing a lot more therapy.
They're corn tortillas, so I thought maybe they had some like.
Connor says it's fine.
All right,
Good
well,
stuff.
that's probably okay.
See, you thought you were going to be nervous, and yet everyone's going to have food poisoning.
It doesn't taste that
It's
good.
gonna be good. So anyway, we wanted to bring therapy to us. So tell me a little bit about what we know as therapy, which is like someone laying on the couch and like spilling their beans about everything, and then someone else with a clipboard who's wearing a bow tie. Is that therapy still?
Well, I actually forgot my legal pads in my
So
bag. I
is
usually
that-
would be taking notes, while we speak, but it's actually not.
Not continuous.
And I have so much anxiety about terms. This is perfect.
Oh my gosh, you need a therapist. Let's get a therapist on the show. Connor, you man for it while.
So, it's not so much laying on the couch. I think that's such an interesting presentation of therapy in the media because people don't lay. I don't even have a couch, really. People sit in a comfortable chair, sometimes recline. And I think the only time people would lay on a couch is for like Freudian sort of psychoanalytic therapy.
Okay.
So I do cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the idea that focuses. I look at thoughts, feelings, and behaviors because I believe that behavior change in general happens from that triad.
Okay.
So, I think it's really funny that people assume that therapy is about laying on a couch.
Yeah.
Because that's only like a very small subset of it.
Okay.
And I think that makes it more enticing in the media, and I think that people also see therapists as just saying like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel? And that's like a very small part of the repertoire.
So who's a candidate for therapy? And I mean, it's a different answer here in New York than it is, like, I'm sure in other places.
Every single person in New York City, basically.
Right. No, I'm in therapy. I love my therapist.
Yeah, I have been in and out of therapy myself. I mean, I think that, and that's another thing, as a therapist, I think people think you are kind of this, like, almighty person.
You need no help whatsoever.
Actually, I think you need more help, in a way, because you're dealing, like, containing so much stuff.
Yeah.
I sometimes go home at night and I think to myself, like, there were a lot of things. Like that day, there were many topics, like a lot that can be really intense at times. But I really think that everyone can benefit from therapy, and I think that I think that there's such a stigma, unfortunately, about therapy and what it means to go to therapy and what that means about a person if they're in therapy. And I think that everyone can benefit. I think that people usually seek out therapy when they're in their worst possible place. So as a therapist who receives that, that's why sometimes it can be really intense.
Sure.
Because, when someone calls me, they're not usually calling me to think, well, I just, thought I should talk out a couple small issues.
Yeah.
It's like, well, my marriage is about to fail next week, and I'd like to come and see if we can handle this type of thing. So, yeah, I think everyone. And I think New York City, it's funny because on the East Coast, it's like a joke. Like, everyone's in therapy. Like, it's just like common conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had never understood why people would spend so much money working on their body and yet no money working on their brain, and that is what basically drives everything else. And if you're not right up here, you're really not right anywhere else.
Right.
And there shouldn't be a stigma to like getting therapy. There shouldn't be a negative connotation to being in therapy. It's just there's no stigma with working out. It's not like, oh, my body's really
Right.
bad. I'm so ashamed to say that I go to the gym.
Right.
There shouldn't be, I'm so ashamed to tell people I'm in therapy. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with you per se. You're just working through issues, the way your body's working through issues.
Right. And I actually think that when people are in therapy and they're working, you know, I think that the mind-body connection is it. You know what I mean? Like, work on your body in the gym in a healthy
Yeah.
way with a lot of eating disorders. So I have to be very aware of the way in which I talk about exercise. But I believe in exercise, and I believe that my clients that are recovered from eating disorders should be exercising. I think that that's actually a really important piece of the recovery process. That's a whole conversation.
So eating disorders is one of your
Eating disorders and
biggest-
OCD are the two areas that I specialize most in, but I see like I have like just the gamut of clients, and I have seen many different types of people, but I do believe in, you know, the mind-body connection, and like it is crucial. It's like, why would you spend so much money at a gym and then not working on the mental part?
Yeah.
And therapy's expensive and therapy's a luxury. I also get that, but I think it's also a necessity. I mean, that's a whole conversation about the fact that I think that it's not accessible to everyone. And,
Yes.
you know, in New York City, being a therapist, like, you know, it's a different, there's a scale to what people will pay for it, which is different than elsewhere and things like that. You know?
And I should say, and Lance, you can just sort of keep us honest here if people have questions. Like Amber, we're talking to Dr. Amber Brandis, who is a therapist who specializes in eating disorders and OCD and a whole range of other topics. But if you guys have questions that you're always asking me, getting motivated, getting started, getting all of it, before Amber dives into the problems that are Lance and Jenna, I say we focus a little bit more first on
You want to focus on everybody else?
everybody else.
You're such a giving person all
I
the
give.
time.
I don't take as much, nearly as much as I give.
I actually think you have a doctor's appointment on Friday, by the way.
Oh, sweet. Does she make house calls or are
No.
we going? She doesn't. Sweet. Amazing. Awesome. I will bring my lovely lady up with me to go to the doctor. I'm trying to kick a cold that I've had for literally 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've been watching the progression of the cold.
I mean,
Right.
this is the cold that never ends. It just goes on and on, my friends.
You can actually probably bring him.
I'll bring Connor, on Friday to the doctor.
That was up to you.
Okay, well, screw you, okay? Because I'm not even going to take you to my doctor, is all I'm going to tell you.
Sorry.
What was I going to say? And at what age can people start? When would you like to see people?
Well, you know, I work with adults. I have worked with children throughout my training, but for me, working with children feels a little bit like, for me, because I don't think I'm skilled in children, feels like glorified babysitting. And I went to school for a really long time to be here, to do this and to have the, you know, credentials that I do have, and for me, I just never really, and I have friends that are amazing child psychologists, and I wholeheartedly believe if you feel like your child needs a psychologist to see someone that specializes, that person's not me.
Right.
So I work with adults, but I do think, and I actually have seen when I was training like 4-year-olds, I do think that the only time a child that young should be in therapy is if they're really showing signs of like, you know, an early onset of some sort of disorder or trauma, some sort of sexual trauma, you know, which, you know, in that case there was a sexual trauma, and so there was behaviors that were being exhibited, and that was why that child ended up in therapy at 4 years old. But I think that typically, I think people take their child to a therapist when they start seeing early signs of like ADHD or you know attentional difficulties. But you know, like I said, my focus is on adults.
When I watch TV or a movie and I see someone who's a broadcaster, I laugh. Like, it's just a bundle of hilarity to me of how they think that the media is portrayed. Do you feel the same way when you see therapists portrayed in on screen? Whether it's like Law and Order or something else? Is it like, I mean, do you...
Well, when I've seen it on Intervention, not Intervention, on, what was that? There was that show, it was like a whole series where it was like, you see all the dynamics play out in treatment.
I loved in treatment.
But I do, but like, I think on that show they were like laying on couches and there was this like kind of this seductive sultry. I'm like, hopefully there's no seductive vibes in therapy. Right. That's not appropriate.
No, but we all want to sleep with Gabriel Byrne. Yeah. Like, I don't even sleep with men, and I was like, God, I really want him. You know, he was so sexy.
Yeah, it was like that was the vibe of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know, that is interesting because there is those issues play out in therapy for sure.
Yeah.
Where people develop feelings and, you know, there's a...
It's called transference.
There's a transference, yeah. And then, like, as the therapist, if you have any of your own feelings, it would be a countertransference, but like you use supervision and stuff like that. If, you know, maybe not feelings of sexual, but just like someone comes in with some problem and it's like triggering something within yourself.
Right.
And, you know, I think that's what I always think about therapy. We were talking about before, you know, going to therapy and like therapists getting therapy. I think that it's like therapists are not superhuman people, and I think it's about knowing that like they get their support and their supervision also. You know what I mean?
See, it's good to know that. Like, I always wonder if, like, I really want my therapist to like me. And it's a really funny thing. I play this little game with my therapist. She doesn't know we're playing it. About, like...
Oh, is this the one you have
Anyway, and she's amazing. Knock it off. And I always, like, I want to be like, I want you to like me. She's like, I adore you. Like, what are you talking about? I think you're wonderful. You know I hold you in such high regard. I'm like, hold me in high regard? Like, what expression is that, Grandma? I'm like, do you find me attractive? She's like, whoa, way inappropriate. I was like, I just want you to like me. But there's always a little bit of that. Like, you know, you want the person that you're spending so much intimate time with to actually like you. But then it's counterintuitive because you want to go in and be honest about your problems.
Well, you don't have the feelings about me and you spend so much time.
I
feel like...
no part of it.
It's interesting that you say that because I have two comments about that. So as a therapist, therapists don't have the same relationship with every client. And I think that...
Ooh, this is so good to know. I absolutely love all this information.
And so... As a therapist, I think it's like, I always say to myself, like, I work with people that I like. That's 90% true. Because I think that there's selection, but there's not, like, complete selection, I guess, you know. But the relationship is different with each client. And I think that it's, you know, I have clients where I've intentionally told them that I care about them because I know how hard, like, I have clients it's too hard for them to take that in.
Oh, this
so
is killing me, Amber.
There's like, so therapy, that's why I say it's like not just like, oh, how do you feel? It's like there's an immense amount of technique.
Yeah.
So like I'll say to a client, like, you know, I really care about you. And this isn't like, this is like very calculated. It's not like, oh, I just love you, I so care about you so much. It's not quite like that. And you know, I've seen an unraveling of people when I've said stuff like that. It's like too much for them to handle, like a close relationship, and you start to see like how important the therapeutic relationship is.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say is, as a therapist, like I never ever take for granted the vulnerability and the relationship that people like that they place in my hands.
Right.
Like that is the only relationship of its kind in people's life.
Yes.
Colleen Elizabeth Baker says, hi, I love seeing Amber on your show. She's my mentor and an incredible clinician and has taught me so much about my own work as a therapist.
Love that.
Thank you, Calby.
That's so cool.
Yes.
Wait, now of course I'm stressed out that, bye Yolanda. I'm so stressed out that she's just saying she likes me to be calculated about it because I really want to be friends with my therapist. Like, I want to like go out for dinner with our families and like meet the kids. Like, she's like a great friend.
Brooke Sherry says, really enjoying this segment. I'd love to see more mental health talks with Amber.
And we should talk about that. I'm being funny. I mean, no, I'm not. But like, I'm being funny. Do I really want to hang out with my therapist? Yes, I do. That would be amazing. Because I'm pretty normal. I don't have that many issues. Like, I go because you know.
By the way, what did your therapist say about the Matt Lauer dream? What does Amber think about the Matt Lauer dream? Did you talk?
Oh, you did talk about the Matt Lauer.
I had a sex dream too about Matt Lauer. Like,
I mean,
big deal.
I don't do a lot of dream analysis, but one thing I will say is I think that there is a normalcy. The one thing I like to tell people is there's so much normalcy around like around everything. You know what I mean? And I think we walk around with like I work a lot with anxiety, so it's like, oh well, I feel anxious. Like, there's normal. I was nervous when we started this shoot. Like, that's normal. Like, no one's gonna tell me that that's not normal. I've never done anything live before. You know what I mean? And like,
you're killing it, by the way.
Thank you. For you to say, oh, I had a sex dream about someone. Okay, like that's a normal thing. And I think that the reason why people feel badly about things is because they judge themselves and because of the secondary thought process that comes from that.
Right.
So like, you wake up and you think like, I God, that's so disgusting. I'm with Steph. I think about that loud.
Okay, first of all, that wasn't from me. That was from Lance.
Right.
I was like, hey, I wore it like a badge of honor. I was like, yeah, I had a dream about my
Oh
life.
no, she was real open. I was wondering.
Right, so then maybe that is positive, so you did use the productive thought process
Right.
to be able to...
Yeah.
I thought it was a good program. All I was thinking about was from a programming point
Thanks.
of view.
Thanks for having my back.
like, oh, that's good. That's
Yeah,
a good
this
segment.
is what I work with every day.
I was like, damn, why doesn't she dream more often?
Because you can't make yourself dream. We should talk about mental health. It's a really big deal, and I think people like to sweep it under the rug a little bit and not discuss it and not talk about it. But there are a ton of people in this country who are dealing with it, from small things like OCD to really much larger issues.
Yeah.
And I think it's not discussed nearly enough.
One thing I want to make a quick comment about OCD is...
Not mental issue.
It is a mental issue, but it's not, I mean, I think it's big. This is like, at some point maybe I can talk further about OCD, because there's such a range of OCD, and like for some people it can be, like I think that most people have some degree of OCD. So it's like I know sometimes I walk out my door, I'm like, did I lock my door? You know what I mean? Like that's a normal sort of thing. Whereas I work with people that it affects their functioning, you know, or I work with less common subtypes, meaning like sexuality-based OCD, like a severe level of anxiety around being gay, and this is a whole conversation, and a lot of explanation would be needed to have about that. But it's not about, people are not gay that have that OCD, relational-based OCD. So people that are paralyzed by fearful thoughts about their partner, paralyzed that something about my partner is not right.
Wow.
You know, so it's like focusing on, let's say, like their stomach or their body, but it's not like a normal thing where, you know, you might say like, oh, you know, this characteristic of my partner, I'd like to be different, you know what I mean? And then, so like greater conversation about OCD another time, but those are just small things. But I think, and then, I mean, I also work with people in private practice that are schizophrenic, fully functioning people that are schizophrenic.
Wow.
You know, and I mean, highly medicated, obviously. And, you know, I think that people can function with mental health with the right support.
Yeah.
That's really how I feel.
This is a good time for me to do a shameless plug, because Carrie had some mental issues in season 3 of Homeland, and this Sunday I have my first line in Homeland coming up. So
she's med. Yeah, she takes a lot. She takes a lot of meds. She's off the meds.
This season, she's completely fine.
She takes no meds anymore this season.
No, she's totally fine. I asked her about it.
How does that happen?
You
asked her about it on?
No.
Oh, was that your question?
No.
Are you tipping us off?
Yeah.
Oh, you're tipping us off.
I am not tipping anything.
Did you break
I already
this?
told you who's in my scene. The president.
The president. I was thinking that maybe you
I'm not
asked
asking
the president about Carrie's meds.
medication. No, I didn't ask her about that.
Oh man, that would be so cool if they had written that in.
I could have just ad-libbed it, but as it is, I was already on thin ice. I'll tell you that story on Monday. Can I keep going, or are there any questions?
Well, Ren wants us to know that. Oh, there's a lot here. So, gosh, 1 second.
Can you just stop eating for 1 second and like?
I could. I really.
I know. Just okay.
It's settling my stomach. I was so nervous. This is the first segment the entire time I've been nervous. I don't know why, but
right, let's grab it and read some comments.
I'm going to do that. I have them in my hand.
Someone come in here and okay.
Your part's coming up next.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and read.
Okay. So, Ren Bean is saying, well, Sherry Stretch says that everybody's got something when you were talking about mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And Ren Bean says, not me, Sherry, I'm perfect. So Sherry said, well, Ren Bean, that must be tough. And Ren said, I'm also a compulsive liar, not too tough, Sherry, and I'm totally kidding. I'm just as messed up as everyone else, maybe more so if you ask my wife. And there's a whole bunch of other commentary around here, but it's mostly hygienas and trues, and there's a lot of.
Gotcha.
So that's what I got there, and then on this we have, yes, okay, wow. Eliza Horner says, if Carrie weren't on meds, her daughter would be dead by now.
Yes, because of that bathtub scene.
Right. Fam Wow says.
I don't watch Homeland, but
Whoa.
I heard it's too scary. Alana said it was too scary.
Too scary. You're a therapist.
She said that I would be too scared. Okay, I'm gonna catch up on it, Alana.
Yeah, you guys have to watch that. And while you're at it, you should watch Man in the High Castle. If you think you're going to be freaked out by Homeland, Man in the High Castle is what happens if Germany won the war after World War II. So, I actually think it's the best programming that I've ever seen. But Pam Wow says, "Hi, Dr. Brandis. I'm a clinician who worked with Amber, and I'm looking to explore different issues of my own in therapy. How does one prioritize what they should work on when starting therapy? P.S. Amber is killing it."
Yes. Who is that? Wait, what name is
This
that?
is Fam Wow.
Oh, that's, yes. Okay, so the question was, how do you prioritize issues? I think that typically it's important to come in on the first session, give everything, like give the therapist all the information, and then what happens for me is I kind of synthesize it. I'll say, okay, so we talked about this, this, and this. You know, it sounds like those are the things that you might want to start with.
Yeah.
I think it's super important to have it be collaborative, for the client to take responsibility for their therapy. I'm not there to create their therapy. So I'll say, I want 3 or 4 goals from you by next time. I'll think about kind of what I think we should be working on.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of come together and say, what this, and then I'll say, you talked about, because often people will like veer away and avoid the things that are important to talk about.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Is that something you want to work on? Because that's the number one thing. I am not telling people what they should work on. If that's something that they want to work on, great. If it's not, all right, well, maybe we'll get there, type of thing.
Can I just tell you something? Also, finding a therapist is really important.
Right.
Because I went through 3 therapists before I landed on the one I have now.
Yep.
And Lance, the one I had before this one, I'm not even going to say what her name was or what I nicknamed her, but she literally would fall asleep during therapy, and I had to pretend I was Haydn in the Surprise Symphony, and halfway through my comment, I would have to say a word very loud to wake her up. It was on me to do that. It was so horrible. I'd be like, and then I was like, wow, that was crazy. And then she would wake up, and it was so stressful to me. I'm like, this didn't work, but I was too afraid to break up with her. So I called my best friend Marty, and we were on 3-way calling, and we called her, and I broke up with her on a voicemail, and then I hung up, and I changed my voicemail to be, you have reached 212 so she wouldn't know it was me. And then I basically hid, and I almost left the Upper West Side, all because I was afraid she was going to find me. Terrible.
Wait.
I needed therapy for breaking up with my old therapist.
You know what? It is interesting the amount of stories I've heard. You think that sounds crazy, and I'm sure people that don't have as much inside knowledge as I do probably think it is. That's not, I've heard such crazy things, and therapists falling asleep, and you said, I've heard that multiple times before.
Really?
Which is terrible. Yes.
The one before that made me take my shoes off when I walked in, and that's a power of strength.
That's just I worked with this person who had
No, that's different, because I have small kids. I don't want you in my house with shoes.
Right.
But to walk into an office, I'd take my shoes off, and I'm sitting there with my socks. I was like, no, this is not good.
Oh, that's different.
Then there was another one I had.
So actually, can I? Oh, you had another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I finish up.
That had this gigantic dog that would walk into therapy in the middle of the session, and then she'd be like, and I'm like, can we talk about me for 5 seconds? I don't need the with the dog. So I finally landed on this one, who I really, really like, and I've been with her for many, many years. I want to go out to dinner with her.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think.
Don't you want to go to dinner with me, Amber?
I do.
How much fun is that?
You're having fun.
Imagine this with a glass of wine.
Without me.
Yeah,
without right.
Yeah.
It would be
Can I actually ask a question? Because I missed the part when I was getting my carbohydrate thing.
Yeah.
Where are you based?
Right. Oh, we didn't get into that. I work in Philly and in New York. So I work in private practice. My New York office is in Midtown, near Rockefeller Center, and in Philly it's in Center City, which is the main downtown area there. So.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where.
That's what I was just asking.
That's a good question, but yeah, what you're describing is not. It happens, unfortunately, and that's one thing I want to make a quick comment about therapists. Not all therapists are created equal, and I feel very happy about myself, and I think that I give a lot, and I think I go above and beyond for what's expected of a therapist.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think not all therapists are created equal, and I think that it's important to really know what you're looking for, and that's something I was thinking about. If we wanted to talk about another time, how do you find a therapist? How do you know what to ask?
Is there a TripAdvisor for therapists?
It's Psychology Today, which if anyone wants to find me or has any follow-up questions, I'm happy to give my email.
And how do they do that? How do they rate the people they?
See, I disagree with both of you. For me, it wasn't about who answered my questions the best. It was about who I felt most comfortable with. Like,
how do you disagree with me? I didn't even have a point.
I always disagree with you. But like when you and I sat down for
question.
because to me, chemistry is more important than anything.
Absolutely.
Because like if you were, there are people in my life that I just have no chemistry with, and if you were one of those people, this would never work. But when we sat down for the first time, we had chemistry. Like,
right.
We just had it. So I could never open up. Someone could be the best therapist in the world, rated #1, A+. I don't know how you rank them. But if I have no chemistry, I'm never going to be myself. And I'm not myself. I'll never allow someone to help me.
Well, the thing is that psychology today is just like a way to find a therapist.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say about that is that I think that the #1 healing agent in therapy is the therapeutic relationship. Hands down, I will say I can give you all the bells and whistles. I can tell you everything to do. The #1 healing agent is the relationship. And one thing I'll say that I feel really fortunate about is that people come to me. I have very few people that don't continue with me, which is great. And not to say people don't, I mean, it doesn't fit with everyone, but like 95% of the people. And I think that I feel really special about that. I feel like that gives me, I feel like that is I just feel really good about that. You know, that I make people feel comfortable, and that's why people come back.
Right,
you know, and that is very true. And when I've been in therapy, I've had therapists where like it's like, you know, like a little strange. For me, I'm like, I have like a very set, like my bar is pretty high. Like if I don't feel good right out the gate, like this isn't gonna work. That being said, people that aren't versed in therapy, I think it's super important to give a few sessions, see if you get to know the person. I think that it's really unfortunate that you had those strange situations, because I think for some people they would shy away from therapy because of that.
Right.
They would be like, forget it, this is stupid, and that's where therapy gets kind of a
muddled.
You know,
all right, finish up on Instagram.
Well, this is actually over here on Periscope. This is a hello from Empower All. I guess Empower All. Says, hello, I'm a licensed social worker in Baltimore and love this method to help others.
Nice. Thank you.
And back to Instagram. Alana, one second. Elan ABC, Amber's mom. I am so proud of my daughter, Amber.
That's my fiance, but it's from my mom. She doesn't know how to really.
Maybe I don't know how to read. Maybe Amber's mom was on here earlier. I'm sorry. I'm challenged when it comes to all of this.
I hope not. You're the social media guy.
And I'm still, so here. If I'm challenged because I have 5 phones and this other computer and this thing, so I have 7 phones I'm working, and I have, so Marcy143 says, hi Amber, I have a question. My son is on ADD medication, but he refused to take it because he thinks he's going to become a drug addict. What is your suggestion for me? Interesting.
I'm curious how old he is. And I would say with ADHD medication, if it's carefully monitored, then the risk, I mean, if he has a risk of addiction, like I said, I'm not sure of the age, but if he has a risk of addiction, I would be much more leery. Whereas I think that if it's, you know, something like that, those are controlled substances for a reason. So that would mean that the person would be seeing their psychiatrist very regularly, and it would be heavily monitored. So I would wonder the age. If it's a small child, that, you know, that would be, you know, parents and everything would be involved. If it's an adult, you know, would be make sure that the person has a psychiatrist, and talk about those concerns with the psychiatrist, and they will prescribe meds accordingly. You know, things that are maybe less addicting and like that.
So all this therapy talk is very nice, but Scott Norwood says, great legs, Jenna and Amber. And Infected Walker 269 says, nice legs, ladies. Michelle Hicks 40 says, hey guys, question for Amber. Therapists are all different, obviously, but being from the South, most therapists will be religious. How do you deal with that? Does your practice start with your own belief? I thought Michelle was from Ohio. I don't know. Maybe.
So the question is how.
If your therapist would be judging you, I think, from a religious point of view, or.
Right.
I'm nervous about that.
I don't know if I would say that. And I don't live in the South, but my guess would be, I don't know that I would say that most therapists would be religious. I think that's a very small subset of them, and I'm not going to launch into my views on that. But I feel like it's important for any person when they're talking about therapy, when they're finding a therapist, to really go over the things that are important to them. For instance, like, at points in my life, like finding an LGBTQ therapist, like, is that something that you're okay with? Is that something that, you know, that you know, they don't necessarily have to be part of that grouping, but are they okay with it? Is there, you know, what religion, you know, do you practice from a religious perspective? Or, you know, you can't really ask someone about their religious beliefs, but I think that upon meeting someone, you get a very clear sense of that. But I would definitely say that I do not think that there's going to be an overarching, that's a very, in my knowledge of people that have very strong religious views, it's a very small subset of therapy.
Patty Sogstead says I'm bipolar, and she used the word used, I think, was sexually abused by my dad.
Oh, really sorry to hear that.
What do you recommend for people? Like, how do you overcome?
Did she
Actually,
ask
she had a question earlier I'm getting to is how do you overcome reliving everything when you start with a new therapist? I'm bipolar and was sexually abused by my dad. I guess the question is, for people who were sexually abused, is it better for them to talk about their sexual abuse, not talk about their sexual abuse?
I don't know if that's your question.
Or maybe
I think the question
I'm
is when you're
interpreting.
starting with a new therapist, how often do you have to like
Right.
unsit
Relive everything.
and relive everything all over again?
Right.
Well, I guess you have to if you
Yeah.
really want to dive in.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
difficult. Typically, what I do when I work with people with a trauma history is I'll ask them what work they've done on it. And typically, when people say that they've done work on trauma, it's not like there are certain skills that they might have learned, but really like going into the trauma is not really what, you know, like people say, oh, I learned grounding skills, and I think that those are really important. And explaining grounding skills, I'd be happy to do another time, but I think it's unfortunate because you probably will have to.
Who owns Who owns the file? Like, if a patient goes to you, can a patient get their file that you keep on them?
They typically, yes, I think legally they can, but if someone wants their file, well, if they wanted their file, if they were going to a new therapist, what they would do is they would typically get a release of information, and I would talk with their new therapist, or I would write. Not often in that situation.
You keep all your clients, but when you receive clients from the other therapist.
Right, I know. I feel like I'm sounding like I don't really know how I'm making myself, but like I keep most of the clients. But typically, what I would do, and when there's been transfers, I would write a summary, and I would provide a summary of the person, and then because we really try not to release all of the notes, just because that could like potentially be detrimental to the person. Although we're very mindful of what is put into.
But you're saying not to the patient, but to the next.
To the next provider, yeah. And I typically don't. I typically don't release all my notes unless that they technically can get them. The patient has
the rights.
The rights to their stuff. Yeah.
There's a lot of questions here. I can't keep up.
Okay, so while he's doing this
melodrama
about how many questions.
There are a lot of questions.
Michelle Hicks says, I live in Columbus, but I'm from North Carolina. Patty Sugstead, Lance, please go up to my 2 comments for Amber. I went up. Infected Walker 269, love your boots, Amber and Jenna.
Thank you.
Marcy 143, who I think asked a question about the AGG son, says he's 15 years old. Infected Walker 269 says beautiful hair. Eliza Horner says, is it necessary to tell your employer that you were seeing a therapist? For example, if you need to leave work early every week, do you need to tell them why?
All of my clients leave work early every week to come to me, and they leave in the middle of the day. My sense, and this is my personal opinion, is no. I think that unless there is a reason, I do not think that you need to give a lot of detail. I even have clients, like when I worked in residential treatment and I worked in eating disorder treatment and things, like when they went back to work, I would say, you know what, you don't have to give every detail. You can give a vague story or a vague amount of information. I mean, this is private, and no employer should expect that you are giving, you know, unless there is, you know, your employer is, you know, forcing you to do therapy, or unless there's some sort of situation at work, or unless it's coming in between your work, something like that is a bit different than just like, oh, I have my weekly therapy appointment type of, you know, I would definitely don't feel like people should feel like they have to say that.
Did you ever see The Prince of Tides?
No, wait, it's a book too and a movie,
yes,
right? Right.
It's a book. I read the book 16 times. It's the only book I read more than once. The movie was incredible. It was a phenomenal, like, psychologist-patient or psychiatrist-patient relationship between Nick Nolte and Barbra Streisand. And like I almost memorized all the scenes and I went through it and I asked one favor of you and I will like bring you back 1,000,000 times if you could just watch the movie so we can analyze it and
I will
definitely
watch the movie. Wait,
overanalyze.
the best story about the Prince of Tides.
I love any story about the Prince of Tides.
It's not really about it.
Oh.
I was in Palm Beach at my grandmother's country club, and they have like a library, like a take and leave or whatever. So we're looking at it, and Alana says like, "Oh, I said maybe I should take a book." I'm like trying to get more into reading and stuff. So I take it was the Prince of Tides. I was like, should I take it? I don't know. And so I ended up not taking it. She told me to read it. I'm going to watch the movie and read the book.
Watch the movie. Yeah, I could do the entire psychological assessment.
I've done assessments of certain movies and things like throughout my training.
But this one is all about therapy, so you'll really love this. Okay.
I'll take notes. I'll do everything.
Love you because I believe you. Okay, Lance, Insta. You said there were a lot. Did we finish?
Yeah, I think I went through most of them. Empower All says, can you talk about where people can go to find therapists?
These are great questions. Thank you guys. I love, like, I definitely
we don't usually get this many questions on one topic.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, this is
it's awesome.
obviously something people...
Yeah. So to find a therapist, I think the best resource would be Psychology Today.
Is it a website?
It's a website, and therapists are listed on there, and then it says like verified, like they verified like my licensure, like so it shows that like the person is licensed. It's not just a random person. Like
I hope my therapist is on there.
It's not. I mean, not every single therapist is on there, but it's a really good way for people to know.
Okay.
You know, like where to find a therapist type of situation. So Psychology Today would be the best way, and you can search your area, specifics, things like that.
I've even tried to say, okay, I'm done with therapy. Now can we just grab dinner next week? She's like, it doesn't work that way. Like you're always, once a client, you're always a client. I'm like, that sucks for you because I'm an amazing friend. And I have a really good time, and you're missing out.
Right. I'm so excited to go out for dinner.
Right?
Yeah. So
see, we're friends. You're not my therapist, so we can have dinner.
Right. So wait, but
missing out, lady.
But the one thing though about that is, if to be really honest about ethics, 2 years post termination, you can be friends with your therapist.
Really? Yeah. Don't think I'm not going to tell her that. 2 years begins. All right. No, wait, hold on a second. Now.
No, I've really had clients in the past that have like begged me, like, all right, we're not seeing you anymore. 2 years, I'm calling you up, like really.
Oh my God, I'm that crazy lunatic. I'm that lunatic.
Yeah.
All right.
Kathy K says, just came from therapy.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Yes.
Alana BC says, sounds like you need to listen to your fiance's media suggestions more.
Okay.
And Becker Abi says, give that guy a box. I don't know, I think that there's like the emoji's not coming up, but I think it was a star for me. Says, hard work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Ren Bean says, isn't it a HIPAA violation? I guess he was talking about when your employer asking or
maybe it's a violation if I go out for dinner with my therapist, but you're saying 2 years post. It's
right,
okay.
2 years post, it's okay. But and speaking of HIPAA violations, is like I tell all of my clients that I'm a real person in real life, and I have like a real life outside of work. And if I say anyone that I would be with knows what I do, so it's up to you. And I have seen clients in real life, and I said it's up to you if you want to talk to me, and if you don't have to. And like I was at Soul Cycle, and I looked like a complete lunatic. I like bun on my head, like messy look. It's like, Amber, and it's like, oh my God, wow, this is
yeah.
Oh, great, this is a good moment.
I saw my therapist at the gym one time, and this person was on the elliptical, and I have done nothing but denounce the elliptical as like the worst thing ever. And there was a bit of awkwardness, and I was like, oh, I see you're on the elliptical. Now, granted, this was 10 years ago. Like, way
This is the one you broke up with?
No, that was asparagus. Oh. I don't see asparagus. I call her asparagus.
So,
I have code names for like my...
Yeah.
So Ren Bean says, Becker Abi says, finding a therapist is like finding a gym. Get the one closest to you. It works for Becker Abi.
Yeah.
Works. Ren Bean says maybe one can say I have a doctor's appointment and then that's it.
Yeah.
And on Facebook we have a comment that says, how can I get my mind on the right track to lose weight? I have a daughter and husband that I want to be around, but usually that doesn't keep me from eating wrong.
That's a great question.
You know what? I think that we could talk about, maybe we should do that like as a greater conversation, like the mind body, like the body with the mind. Like how do you, like what would you say as a trainer to someone? You know what I mean? And like what would I say is from the mental perspective, you know what I mean? And like, it's like, what I would say initially to that is like, what are you telling yourself? You know what I mean? Because like the situation at hand is that you want to lose weight, but like, what do you tell yourself about that? You know? And I have a very positive kind of angle with things. Like, you look like what you look like today. You know what I mean? So why don't you own who you are today and know that you have a goal that you're working towards? But I think that what happens is people continually tell themselves, continually feeding themselves negative things, which perpetuates weight gain. You know what I mean? Instead of just saying, you know, this is who I am, and that's, you know, that's like the body image and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can be working towards a goal.
Yeah.
But today this is who you are.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I think that's hugely important.
Okay.
Michelle Hicks 40 says, I agree with the 2 years as a physical therapist. I have had patients walk up to me at a bar, restaurant, and then start talking to me about her knees, and then wanted to have a drink, LOL.
That's really funny, Michelle.
And next 123 says, what's a therapy session like?
These are awesome questions.
Yep.
I'm so happy that I'm here.
We have a really good audience.
Yeah.
We have a
This
great,
is a great audience.
There's a great community here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, so just to be brief about a therapy session. So it varies per therapist. Usually it's 45 to 50 minutes. For me,
FYI, I always go 60. Just saying. She loves me. Go on. Not for nothing. Just saying. JS.
it is 45 to 50. Yes, some people get, some people do get 60, but
ST,
it's supposed to be 45 to 50. And so typically what it is you, depending on the person's style, you come in and you sit down, and for me, I always like people to feel comfortable. So the person's probably going to ask you some questions. I always do an intake. An intake is I ask a lot of questions. I always tell clients, like, I want to have as much information about you as possible.
Even
so
if this is someone that you've been working together for a while.
No. First session.
First session.
No. When they come in, they'll come in and they'll say, I'll say, you know, I usually actually, my coin phrase is what's the latest and the greatest. They know that that's like what I always say. Like, I sit down and I'm like, or I'm just like, you know, like another day in paradise. You know, I just like have some sort of way, and I will use humor a lot, so I think people they'll laugh, and then we'll be like, okay, so what's up? You know what I mean? Like, so therapists will ask you a lot of questions. I think it's important to think about what your expectation is of the therapist, because once I know someone, I mean, I can say, oh, remember that thing we talked about 6 months ago, and I bring it into what we're talking about in that moment.
Right.
But initially it's a lot of like getting to know and asking questions and like guiding. And I think you need to know and talk to the therapist about what your expectation is of therapy. Like, what are you looking for from therapy? But that's kind of what a therapy session feels like. It's okay if there's some silence. I think that's probably something I could be better at, because I'm a very vocal, verbal person. So like when there's silence, I am like, oh, you know what? I think I think we should talk about that. And I'm very active in that way. But it depends on who the person is. But that's, I guess, how therapy feels. How would you say therapy feels? Like, what?
So I don't remember my first therapy session, but I remember that I connected with my therapist right off the bat when I first met this one after 4 terrible ones. And I walked in, and therapy for me, like, for the first 6 months was me trying to figure out whether she was gay or not, because she gave off a little bit of a vibe. So, like, it wasn't even about getting therapy. Like, I was literally paying her an obscene amount of money to just ask her questions to see if I could get to the... Therapy hasn't worked for me, because I really come at it from a different perspective, but...
So is she gay or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
why don't you just ask her directly?
Well, I do know.
Yeah,
I'm just not saying.
Oh, okay. But
not that anyone even knows what I'm talking about.
It would have been okay to like direct.
I did ask, and she said, I will tell you when it applies to you, and it'll make your life either better or worse. Like when it's something that appeals to you.
Right.
Like for you to just know a piece of information about me does not help you. This is about you and helping you, and that doesn't help you until whatever. Yeah, so we got to the point where I came in one time, and I was going through. Like when I first started seeing her, I was like, yes, I'm seeing someone, and this person is really nice, and this person left my place last night, and then this person called me up, and she's like, you do realize, like, I know that this is a woman, right? Like, this is not my first go around at this. And I was like, okay, fine, I'm dating a woman. So I came in one time and I had this whole big thing. It was an emotional, like, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, broke my heart, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I need you to tell me something that will make me understand that I'm going to get through this. I need you to tell me something that will, like, that you've been through this, that you get it. You told me to ask you, and you would tell me when it applies to me. Well, this is something that by you telling me that would now apply to me. And I was like in tears, and I was emotional, and then she's like, okay, that's fair. And then she told me. I was like, now can we get dinner or what?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
So Blue Ox 83 says, such a great segment. We'll love to see more of Amber. Infected Walker 269 says Amber is great. Patty Sogstead, who was the one earlier who was talking about her dad, she said, I think I need to fly from Wisconsin to New York each week to see Amber.
So much business.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
Wow.
So
So that catches us up.
Are we caught up?
Mm-hmm.
Originally, Amber was going to come on and do some therapy for Lance and me, but I wonder if for this first time, she's better served answering your questions and getting to the bottom of things that you have. Therapy now for me, I absolutely love and I look forward to because, you know, you're tackling the things that are really hard that none of your friends have time to sit and listen to and overanalyze.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are days when I don't have a lot going on where it's nice to just have a conversation with someone and someone who will just listen for an hour.
Right. And
did I mention we're in for 60 minutes? Everyone else will. I mentioned that? Okay. You would love that, Lance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, right, I think that therapy is great. I think that it's, the thing is that, like, your therapist is not your friend, and so that's what makes it really different, is that, like,
yeah.
But what I think becomes hard for people, sometimes people feel more connected to me than they do to their friends. And they feel more connected to their therapist than they do to people in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like I said, I never ever take for granted the role that I play, because it is so important and special. And I'm the only person in these people's lives that plays that role.
Right.
You know? And it's just, you know, I mean, I had someone tell me not that long ago that I'm their lifeline, you know? I mean, and that's like a lot to feel like
Sure.
to hold as a person,
Sure.
but it was just like, and this person's going through some really difficult things, and
Yeah.
I you know, feel like, wow, like that is, like, I have a lack of words when I talk about, like, how valuable, how special therapy is to me. It really is, you know.
Michelle Hicks 40 says, good job, Amber. You obviously are good at what you do.
Thank you.
Which is nice to know. So are you, Lance?
Obviously.
Managing
So-
like 7 things there, so.
It's hard. Like, I'm not good at I'm not actually good at multitasking, which sort of makes this challenging.
So,
I have a question for you,
Sure,
since
go
you're a
ahead.
doctor. I took Dayquil this morning. I'm sorry, it's not therapy related, but I took Dayquil this morning, which has acetaminophen in it.
mm-hmm.
Add a nasal decongestion. As you can see, I'm fully nasally congested, and I don't know if the acetaminophen and my head is pounding. So I'm just wondering if I can take more. I took it at like 8.
I have
Can
a
you ask
solution
your
for
friend
you.
for me?
Why don't I take a look at the package and read it for you?
You know, I didn't bring it with me. I'll
They don't have it
I
here
think
with
that
you
Dayquil-
anymore?
I'm not.
Dayquil?
Right.
No, but I can look at. I'm sure I could Google it and find it.
But you don't have it with you. You want to go home and take it? What's the question?
No. I was gonna. That's a good question. I didn't bring any with me. I'm wondering on a normal day, like if I go home at my normal
I think
time.
you can just
3.
text that question.
Yeah.
Would
I'll
you-
text that question.
Would
I
you
didn't
like
mean to throw
Dayquil?
that.
I would be more than happy to provide you with some Dayquil before I go to work. I can get you some Dayquil.
Do you have it in your bag?
No,
Eliza
I'll
Horner
get it
says,
and then
Jenna,
forget
you
you
need to use a
before.
saline nasal
I've
mist.
done it.
It's a miracle.
I've done
Jenna Hick-
Afrin. What else?
No.
Michelle Hicks says, Jenna, there are different types of doctors.
No,
LMAO.
Afrin. Okay, I'm
No,
not.
tell me. I want to know.
My dad's an ENT.
Oh no, is this gonna call? Oh no! I just want to feel better.
No, I think that what you should use. Who just said the nasal thing? I think
I've
that's
done that.
Eliza
nasal
Horner,
thing.
she
Does it open up?
The-
Where you
no,
go in
the-
one nose and then it
right,
comes up the
and then
other.
comes out the other one.
I'm so. You don't seem to understand. Did you ever play sports in high school?
I was on the team.
Okay, so you did in air quotes. Freshman team, JV team, varsity team.
I was on a few teams.
Okay.
softball.
Softball. And ice hockey. Is that what you're trying to say?
I wasn't trying to say anything. I was trying to guess the team.
Most people's stuffy nose, freshman, maybe JV level. My stuffy nose, full on, all league, all county, all state, varsity. That's how congested my nose is.
So did you go to a doctor? We were talking about this.
Yes.
You didn't go. So you went to a doctor?
No, yes. I talked to a doctor on the phone.
And what was the response?
It was one of 2 things. I might have had the flu and like pounded my way through it, and now I'm way outside the scope of doing anything, and it's just going through my body. And then the other thing is like it's a what is it, viral or bacterial, where antibiotics don't help. It's just a cold.
I have no idea. I failed every science class.
His dad
What?
is one of the
It's
top.
viral.
That's what I have. I have a viral
It's viral.
infection. His dad is one of the top doctors at Columbia. Cardiologists.
He's retired.
Cardiac surgeon? Cardiologist?
Wow.
Cardiologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I couldn't. But when I was around 40, I found out that a myocardial infarct was a heart attack. My dad at the dinner table would always say, and this one had a myocardial infarct, and that one had a myocardial infarct, and I was just like, my dad's the most amazing doctor because none of his patients have heart attacks.
But that's like my brother. Everything with my brother.
Kari says it's viral.
Oh, is he?
Michelle Hicks says it's viral.
Thanks, guys. What does that mean? Today's day 17. Can
So-
someone come and take their hand and stick it up inside my body and rip out all the bad cold cells and throw them in the Hudson River?
What you do on your own time is your own business.
You're gross. Don't tell me my mind is in the gutter.
Eliza Horner says, I'm so obsessed with it. She's talking about the nasal mist thing.
So I know, and I
It
have
really
the
works
whole
and it's
box
not
of the
habit forming.
saline.
Michelle Hicks says, go to sleep.
When do you want
Kate, Kathy K says, your sinuses are inflamed. She also says she has the same thing, you need an antibiotic. And Ren Bean says, Jenna, do you have any allergies? Sounds like an allergy cold thing. You have like the Google situation on steroids because you have doctors coming at you without medical licenses who are all practicing medicine.
Amazing.
Well, I have a solution.
Yeah.
I think that what you should do, so we're going on 17 days.
Yeah.
I think what you need to do is you spoke to a doctor.
Yeah.
You want a doctor to come to you.
Yeah.
It might be good
Just
if
go
you
to a doctor.
physically.
Go there.
I think you're going on Friday. Infected Walker 269 says you two are great together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Infected.
Okay, Patty Sogstad says you need to do the nasal sinus rinse with a net pot.
Not with a
Neti,
net pot.
like-
I don't have a neti. I have the squeezy bottle.
Well, one thing I want to say about that, because my dad, like I said, is an ENT. You have to always use like distilled water.
I don't use it. I use tap water.
No, because you have to use distilled water. You have to buy a jug of it because of like things that can be in the tap water.
I'm literally gonna vomit right now. Why? What am I doing to my body? Have I screwed up my body?
All I'm saying is that's what I was always told. You have to use sterile water for that, like a saline water.
I
Like
heard New York City water is so clean.
No, it is clean, but it's different than putting it into your nose.
I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna throw up. I'm not good with this stuff. I'm gonna throw up. Do you want to?
I'm actually can't even listen to this because I'm reading Alana's comments. Alana, her fiance.
Yeah.
So she's confusing me because she keeps on every time she writes a comment, she writes Amber's mom colon. These are things that
These
your
are
mom
your
says?
mom's
Potentially, my mom is
Your
calling
mom
her
would
on
say
the phone
take
now.
vitamins.
Yeah.
Okay, and then your mom also says, and Amber's mom says, go to a doctor. Michelle Hicks 40 says bacteria in the tap water can cause issues.
Yes, but I haven't been doing that. I've been doing Afrin, which you say is even worse.
I think that my dad would probably say, and I'm speaking, hoping that this is accurate, that he only uses Afrin like a little bit. Like I'll use Afrin if I'm like on a plane and
I'm gonna throw up. I'm not good at this stuff.
Wait,
I'm not good at
I
like.
hope you don't throw up because then I'm not going to throw up.
No, but here's what happens. If
Darren,
anything
actually, with a good question.
ends with what?
Oh no, you go through it.
So I have two things that will make me throw up instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Getting blood drawn, like talking about it,
Yeah.
and a nosebleed. And I will vomit, and not uncontrollably. I don't know why. It's a terrible reaction, so please don't tell me that anything ends with that.
Okay, nothing ends with that.
Okay.
I think what will end with this is like going to see a doctor
Okay,
to really
okay.
be able to help.
So Darren's asking, what kind of therapist is Amber?
I'm a clinical psychologist, meaning, and I think that is, these questions are.
That means you're a
good.
doctor.
That means I'm a doctor. So someone with the word psychologist means that they have a doctorate, meaning that they went to at least 5 to 7 years of graduate school.
Medical? Do you have to go to medical school?
No, but I went to like psychology school, got my doctorate, like wrote a dissertation, like all of that kind of stuff. Whereas a therapist, people use the word therapist can be someone at the master's level, a licensed social worker, things like that. So that's what really the word psychologist is actually really coveted.
And that means you can prescribe meds.
No, that's
or
a
not,
psychiatrist.
psychiatrist.
But that's a huge debate within the psychology community actually, because psychologists want prescription privileges. So that's been like something going on for years. So if that ever becomes a thing, I probably would do extra, courses and whatever. But I think that it changes the dynamic, you know what I mean? Because you're working in a more relational way as a psychologist, whereas a psychiatrist it's a different angle.
I will just say that mine happens to be psychiatrist, but I just use her as a therapist.
And people do that.
So she doesn't prescribe you any medication?
No, but maybe she could give me like some distilled
Some
water.
naphthalene.
Or
Yeah, well,
some,
actually,
like,
Michelle Hicks says
Tylenol.
that Michelle Hicks says, seriously, you are putting New York City water in your nose. Bacteria in the tap water.
No, I
can cause
can't
issues.
hear it.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Alana BC says the water from the sink has too many impurities in it.
Literally going to pass out.
Tell them that, and a squirt bottle is easier than a neti.
I'm gonna pass out.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Do you
So
do
let's.
this? I've never done this in
Yeah.
my life.
But now I'm gonna really pass out.
No, it's
because
what
I've
I've
used.
used. I've used regular water too. No, I didn't know.
Darren's
I
asked,
didn't.
so Darren's follow-up question,
Yeah.
you had answered it earlier, adult patients are children, so maybe just a reset
Adult
overall.
patient. Okay, we're talking to Dr. Amber Brandis. Like, now I call you doctor. It's funny. Amber is a clinical psychologist. She works both in Philadelphia and in New York City. She focuses on obesity issues, on OCD issues, but on a whole host of other issues as well. She's been answering a number of questions. Mental health issues are so prevalent right now, and I think it used to be a poo-poo topic to talk about and taboo, and now it's really out in the open. And I think a lot of people are benefiting from having access, really good access to the therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and the whole mental field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I say that right? Did I do right by you?
No, I think you did right. Eating disorders is also part of it. Obesity,
Yeah.
weight, all that.
Darren actually points out that if you need, he can send some Flint, Michigan water. He's a mailman.
Oh my god, if you send me that, my nose will fall off my face.
Kathy K says, I have both psychiatrists and therapists. Next 123 says, we don't want to be drugged. And then said it's better than the afternoon. I don't know what context was there.
One
And
comment about
some,
go ahead.
sometimes when I'm reading, there's this Twitter account, the New York Times Without Context. I sort of feel that way, like I'm just randomly pulling out a comment. Sorry.
The comment about psychologists and psychiatrists is often they work together. So if someone needs medication, like I
They'll
work with
send you to a
psychiatrists, you know what I mean, and like I'll do the referral. I do think sometimes starting without medication can be good depending on the situation. I think some people absolutely need to be on medication. With like anxiety disorders, you can often begin to build skills in a therapeutic context.
Right.
And then I'll say, you know what, look, like the medication could be helpful too, type of thing.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
Darren says that his son is going to a therapist. He struggles with new situations.
Well, I'll tell you,
Like
can I just say, not for nothing, Darren, but I have terrible social anxiety, which is so ironic considering I'm in the public eye and I went to all these events when I was at the Today Show, and like I do a ton of public events, and the public speaking is no problem. I could get on stage naked and talk for 5 hours in front of 80,000 people with nothing prepared.
Yeah.
Wouldn't bother me one bit. My heartbeat wouldn't even race one extra. But walking into like the Today Show Christmas party, couldn't do it. I had to walk in with like 3 people. I stood there for like 15 minutes, like I was like sweaty, I was just like a mess, and then I left. And in therapy, like we had to talk about it, and Christmas season was really stressful for me with all these different parties. And yet I skydive, I swim with sharks, I teach classes, I give speeches, like no problem. But I have really terrible social anxiety over new situations. So Darren, I totally sympathize with your
Right,
son.
he was actually to finish it. He had a follow-on to it, is saying that new situations and transitioning. He's not sure if he will grow out of it or there's something there to address, like transitioning. What I mean.
I would say depending. I mean that's common social anxiety, but I think transitions. I don't know how old this individual is, but like coming back to what a point I made earlier. Like I think there's a normalcy to some of it. Like social anxiety, like everyone feels uncomfortable
6.
initially. You know what I mean?
He's
It's
6.
How?
His child is 6.
Oh, 6 years old. Yeah, I mean he's little, So I think that kids are uneasy. Kids are kind of unattaching from their parents. You know what I mean? And it's just like it's. I think that he's little at that point.
And that was like a divorce situation also, so I'm wondering if he.
Right, and I think with transition, sometimes it's important if you're talking about like a transition like during the day from activity, like right now we're gonna leave here and go here, or we're gonna do this, or is it like life, like bigger transitions, like we are going on vacation type of thing.
Right.
Because I think when it's smaller, I mean when it's bigger as well, but when it's smaller, you can say like, like you little kids, you probably do say to them, hey Harper, it's gonna be time to go in 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Time to wrap up, because we give cues. You know what I mean? Because kids need help with the transitional stuff. Was there another part of that question? I think I like lost it in my head.
The transition. So basically, he was saying he was that way before the divorce, though. Like he, I guess, has had transition issues his whole life.
Right.
Or maybe not his whole life, but before the divorce happened.
I will tell you, this was really helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was helpful for a lot of people. Do you want to finish up on some comments?
Yeah, because, I mean, this is going, there's still more. Darren is first of all saying we found giving a warning helped before doing something. That, like, I guess preparation, preparing for that. And Kathy K said, I learned about the real definition of clinical depression today. And this just ended in, because we went over the hour,
Right.
but the last comment in here was Alana saying that you did a great job today.
You did an amazing
And I'm going to
job.
actually just...
That
Thank
was
you
so
very
much
much.
fun.
So we didn't get a chance to do us, but I'd love you to come back.
I'd love to come back.
That would be awesome.
So do you want me to send you some?
Yeah, we can
ideas?
talk
I mean,
all about it.
I'd love to.
Obviously, it's a very popular topic, and I think Amber should come back on.
Yeah,
whenever
this is an
you're in New
area
York.
that a lot of people don't have access to, or they don't really like. There's
Know where to
you
go.
said something that to me was really interesting. You said a lot of things that were interesting, but you made the point that the therapy session is something that should be managed by the patient on some level, whereas I don't think most people sort of think of it that way. Like they're used to going to a doctor who's in charge, or there's this other element. I found that to be a very interesting insight.
Yeah.
Right. No, that is really true. I think it's just interesting. Like I prepared for this a little bit yesterday, and I was like, are these things like people don't know? Like
They
to
don't
me,
know.
This seems you know what I mean? Because it's like
Can't
the stuff I
assume.
talk about it like every day,
Right,
and so
you're in it.
I know it, and so yeah, it seems like it was really. I mean, I would love to come back.
Yeah.
I'd love to
We'll
come
have
back.
you back.
Kathy K says, I love this woman. And Darren says, free therapy questions without a copay.
There
Alright,
you
so
go.
however many new viewers you get because of me, I mean,
Yes.
that was awesome. No, I would really love to come back. I
And
mean,
Sammy
I have
Hinkle
ideas.
says, hey Jenna from small town in Wisconsin.
Hey, Sammy.
And Kathy K
was
says,
fun.
great guest. And next 123 says, you were great. And just to reset for everyone that you're not a regular guest. You're really part of our community. Like you
we
came
learned,
in
we
through.
met Amber because she was one of our viewers.
She
and
was one of
came
our viewers on
and now She's
Instagram.
our guest. So if anyone's got a specialty that they want to come in and.
Right. So this is really just
Yeah,
how
this
the
worked out
community.
perfectly.
This was great.
All right, so
So
we
th-
established that you and I can be friends.
We're gonna be friends.
Right, so you're not gonna
Wow.
therapize me.
I'm not gonna therapize you. Are we still?
Darren says he can. Yeah, we're live.
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
all
yeah.
over. I relaunched on Instagram just because I figured that Alana was there. Darren says he can juggle if you want.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Come back next
Thank-
time you're in New York.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come back. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, I mean, I'm happy to give my
Tell
email.
people how do
if
they
people
get in
want-
touch with
Yeah,
you.
so if you have any further questions, Dr. Amber Brandis, DrAmberBrandes @gmail.com.
Right. We also put your on our Periscope. They can go and
Yeah.
see your Twitter
Yeah,
handle, right?
and we'll tweet
And
out
we'll-
your
we'll tweet out your
information.
contact
just
information.
Any questions, I'm happy to answer further questions.
Well, you know what? When we take our picture, Lance, we'll put her email address to get in touch with her.
Okay.
All right.
And Darren is giving me a pointer here, and I appreciate Darren. Thank you. All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right.
We'll talk to you
I
soon.
will.
Amber.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, man. All right. Be good.
He's just gonna shut them off.
It just takes me a while because I can't see well, and I'm slow when I'm old.